Liability issues in a disaster. Liability is defined as the state of being responsible for something, especially by law. The World Health Organization defines disaster as any occurrence that causes damage, ecological disruption, loss of human life, deterioration of health and health services on a scale sufficient to warrant an extraordinary response from outside the accepted community or area. As it relates to disasters, liability issues can affect many areas of disaster management. State and local governments have very specific responsibilities as it relates to emergency planning, including protecting themselves and their staff from potential liabilities. At the same time, citizens, property owners, businesses, etc. also have a duty to protect themselves and their properties. Whether disaster is natural or man-made, proper planning before, during, and after should increase safety and decrease liability issues. Liability issues in disaster can result from failure to take action, failure to perform a duty, failure to train or supervise personnel, failure to plan or adhere to a plan. It's important to know the roles of all parties involved throughout the disaster management process. And by working closely with qualified legal counsel, litigation mitigation can ensure that governments take the steps necessary to avoid making decisions that result in liability issues. The main three goals of litigation mitigation are to reduce exposure to legal claims, improve life safety, and enhance property protection. By using readily available sources of liability information such as constitutions, statutes, state, federal, local laws, and ordinances, tort law, throughout the entire disaster management process, you can severely limit liability. Factors to consider when determining liability include perceived harm, negligence, and immunity. Perceived mental, physical, or financial harm can result from policies that are implemented throughout the disaster mitigation process. Between September 11, 2001 and December 31, 2015, there were 215 disaster-related litigation cases stemming from emergency preparedness, response, and recovery activities related to hurricanes and terrorist attacks. Negligence is having a duty of care, breaching it, and it resulting in foreseeable harm or injury. With regard to disaster, negligence arises from either the failure or unreasonably bad performance of governmental duties, and failure to comply with legal duties such as following OSHA regulations or something to that effect. Immunity are provisions that prevent tort claims against state and local governments arising from their negligence or any misconduct while they're performing government functions for the public good. There are numerous legal duties in emergency management, and it depends on what level of government we're looking at. We recently saw with the COVID-19 pandemic, the public health emergency powers of the state government activated with regard to social distance, vaccination requirements, isolation, the reporting of COVID cases, and things of that nature. So everyone is responsible for following local ordinances, state laws, federal laws, and any regulations that govern the emergency management process, especially while an emergency is happening. These things include everything I have listed here as far as ensuring all of your plans and procedures are updated, your staff is trained, you've assessed vulnerability, hazards, you've issued the proper warnings, you know what those are, when to give those, your equipment is in order, resources that are needed are readily available and they're distributed and used fairly, and making sure any medical and public health systems are planned properly. So again, it's extremely important to plan. Governments need to make sure they're planning for special risks. So things like your school violence, terrorism, oil spills, etc. Training and exercising their responsibilities on a regular basis, knowing when and how to declare an emergency, and making sure their evacuation, disaster, recovery, and mitigation plans are in place. As we've been taught throughout this course, mitigation, preparation, responding, and recovery is a system that is in place to ensure everything flows smoothly and also minimize liability issues. So by taking the appropriate actions, governments can ensure that things are done as they should be. In conclusion, in order to combat liability issues and disasters, emergency management has to ensure compliance with all ordinances, laws, policies, and procedures on all levels of government, and they need to get with competent legal counsel throughout their entire emergency management process to aid in this. Thank you.